MegaMan Legends became a cult classic game amongst the PlayStation's library. Though the game offered quite a bit to like, one thing a lot of people were drawn to were the characters. But one group that simply made the cast so special were the villains. The Bonnes are just some of the most likable characters I've ever had the chance to trade blows with. They were imposing, but equally funny, and their army of surfbots became an iconic pillar, not just for the series, but Capcom as a whole. Every cutscene where they were present in MegaMan Legends was the best cutscene in the game. The sentiment isn't exclusive to the fans though. Ask any member of the original MegaMan Legends development team who their favorite character is, and they'll almost assuredly tell you it's either one of the Bonnes or the surfbots under them. They had a bit more time to kill before properly following up MegaMan Legends with its sequel. Using their time to get a little more practice with the mechanical workings of the engine, they created a spin-off title for the series. And who in the MegaMan Legends universe would be so prominent and creative enough to possibly carry an entire game by themselves? Well, none other than the Bonnes, of course. So initially released in 1999, the world was given the Misadventures of Tron Bonne. Coming out towards the tail end of the PlayStation's life, and being a spin-off to an already not-so-successful game, it wasn't a huge seller. Nowadays, this game is one of the rarest PS1 titles you could possibly get your hands on, selling for extreme prices online. As for myself, I'll just stick to the PlayStation Network re-release. Haven't played MegaMan Legends before? No need to worry. This time we have a prequel story that is completely separate from the events of the last game. The Bonnes set their sights on Ryship Island. Upon it is a giant ruin where Diana's tear is located, a refractor worth so much that the Bonnes will all be up to their eyeballs in cash. Deploying for this mission will be Teasel Bonne and Bonne Bonne. Oh my goodness, voice actor change! Yeah, I wasn't kidding when I said it'd be weird if any of these characters got their voices replaced. And for some reason, they decided to replace the character that only says Babu in both English and Japanese? Well, either way, it's not a critical issue. Spoilers, but Bonne Bonne will be returning with his old voice in Legends 2 properly. While we're establishing the story, I might as well say this is the new format Misadventures of Tron Bonne uses to present its cutscenes. Rather than choreographed movie scenes, the game instead has animated portraits of the characters and dialogue boxes. This was no doubt made as a budgetary decision, but I think that's completely fine. In fact, the portrait sprites hold up extremely well. They are expressive in all the ways that you would hope and expect from these characters. The game is still completely voice acted, and all of the characters aside from Bonne reprise their original roles. As always, they do a great job. But I felt the overall quality of their deliveries were worse in this game. I think that's forgivable though. With there being no animation they have to match, the lines don't feel nearly as forced as they would normally sound. I still have my gripes though. The audio balancing here is even worse than it was in MegaMan Legends 1, as the music drowns out the audio performances way more. At least they're audible enough that I could still make it out just fine. But the accompanying dialogue boxes clears up anything they would say. I also really like how the words on screen are synced with when the character says them in the recording. Small touch, but I appreciate it. Much like the last game, we do open up with an introduction stage that doubles as our tutorial. Here we play as Teasel piloting a robot named the Gustav, and as you progress... Oh my! Listen to this! Ooh yeah! This song's a real banger right here! If there's one thing you can count on being good in a Mega Man game, it's going to be the soundtrack. But it's an area where I wouldn't say was one of the original game's strengths. Not that it was bad, but it was much more ambient and understated. From here on out though, the soundtracks for the Legends games get much stronger. Anyway, enough of that tangent. With this intro stage, we get the chance to become much more accustomed to the controls. The basic control layout is pretty much the same as last time. D-pad to move around, L1 and R1 to turn the camera, X to jump, all the basics. The Gustav is understandably much slower than Mega Man, so it's possible some players might find it clunkier than before. But it also makes sense to me that piloting a giant tank would be fairly awkward. But there is a new command that is unique to this game. You may have noticed there are a group of surfbots following around the Gustav. But if there's something specific you want the surfbots to accomplish, you can hold down R2 and press square or triangle to fire a beacon bomb. Notice a small crevice? Send them in to investigate. Enemies quickly approaching? Get them to pin it down for a little. It creates a unique interaction between the player and the environment. Well, eventually, Teasel finds his way to some old ruins, where he'll no doubt find Diana's tear. But unfortunately, he's stopped outside by another pirate named Glide, accompanied by his birdbot companions. They came to give Teasel a little visit, something about how he has a loan that needs to be repaid. Well, with Teasel having no money to fork over, Glide then defeats Teasel and kidnaps both him and Bonne. Tron, unsure of exactly what happened, does some investigation to figure out who took Teasel. One of the servbots then discovers a note left behind by Teasel, a written IOU to someone named Lex Loath for the order of 1 million zenny. Tron then reasons it was this million zenny that was exactly the funding needed to build the Gesellschaft. You know, now that I think about it, 1 million zenny is a pretty small number. It's not like we really know how that equates to real-life currency, but let's draw comparisons. It didn't even cost 1 million zenny to fully upgrade the shining laser in the original MegaMan Legends, the ultimate weapon in that game. I used to find it really weird that Mega Man Volnut's weaponry alone was enough firepower to take down a huge battleship, but now that I know it cost only 1 million zenny to build, it makes more sense to me. Teasel got what he paid for. Either way, Tron decides that she's going to get her brothers back no matter what, and figures out how to raise the million zenny to pay off Teasel's debt. Well, as you can probably tell, the Misadventures of Tron Bonne isn't an open-world adventure game. In the nature of being a spin-off, it takes the Mega Man Legends gameplay but applies a completely new structure to make it feel distinct. In fact, if Mega Man Legends was Capcom's take on The Legend of Zelda, then one might be able to say that the Misadventures of Tron Bonne is Capcom's preemptive response to Pikmin. Or maybe Pikmin 2 specifically, because, you know, the whole debt storyline. Before you deploy on any missions, you have the opportunity to walk around the Gesellschaft. Here you can talk to all the different servbots. There are 40 in total you can talk to. Each one has their own personality, maximum stats, and special talents to contribute. You can go to a variety of rooms on the Gesellschaft, but there's only a few you need to frequently visit. The first one being the lab, where you can spend zenny to research and develop new weapons, better armor, and increase the maximum energy of the Gustav. These things all cost money though, so you don't want to be spending too much money on upgrades, as the more you spend will only set you farther back from the million zenny you need to pay back Loath. But the best feature of the lab is that Tron will change out of her ordinary getup and instead don a lab coat and some glasses. Oh my goodness, she is adorable, and this is the best design Tron has ever had. Second stop on the ship is the storage room. Here you can solve some of the various items you'll receive. You can also have certain items appraised if you have no idea what they do. For as simple as it sounds, it's one of the most useful rooms on the ship. But if you want to increase the efficiency of your army, then you should head down to the training room. Here you can increase the performance of servbots when they go out on missions. A servbot has 4 base stats: attack, speed, brains, and sloth. Brains will automatically go up after taking servbots out on missions. But there are 2 other minigames you can play to increase these stats. The one that increases attack is this bomb-throwing minigame. It's surprisingly addictive, but the controls do feel a little unresponsive sometimes. I swear, sometimes I press the button perfectly to catch the bomb, but the servbot will drop it anyway. The one to increase speed is a bit more straightforward. You'll hand out dinner orders to a line of servbots by pressing a button combination that matches up with their request. I like both minigames in a vacuum, but I find both extremely annoying when looking at them practically. The timing requirements on both are just so extremely tight that you have to really know the ins and outs to succeed. And you have to do these minigames individually for every servbot you want to upgrade. The good news is that you don't have to engage with these systems at all. You can go the whole game without upgrading any of your servbots. But if there are some stats you really want the boost to, you can also find special cubes to permanently upgrade one of the parameters if you're ever in a bind. One of those stats did sound a little out of place though: sloth. As you can probably tell by this name, it's not the kind of stat you want to be high. It raises automatically if you don't take the servbots out on missions. Once maxed out to level 4, the servbot will be too lazy to do any work. To teach them a lesson and lower their sloth, you can play another special minigame in the torture room. Yeah, let's not forget the Bonds are still villains. Here, you throw a servbot into a ring of traps and beat the ever-loving snot out of them. If you give them enough punishment, they'll apologize and their sloth will be reset. Fail and you'll only make them angry. But you can always try the minigame again if you want. Again, this is something you don't have to engage with if you don't want to. As long as you're actively cycling surfbots into missions, you'll never see them reach level 4 Sloth. And of course, we have the bridge. One of the things you can do here is to send surfbots to scout out the island. When they're done, they'll return and bring with them items that you can use or sell. And of course, it's also from the bridge where you deploy for missions. Here is where you get a map of the island, and you can select any of the missions you desire. So it feels a lot like the older Mega Man games in the sense that you can tackle the game in any order you want. The interesting thing about the missions is that none of them share the same gameplay core. Each mission is separated into 3 episodes, with each increasingly getting more difficult, but also rewarding more Zenny upon completion. Before each mission, Tron will hold a briefing meeting, outlining exactly what the current objective is, what robot she will pilot, and which surfbots will be deployed. There are 4 mission types, so let's go over each one individually and break down exactly what's on offer. The first type are the action missions. In this type, Tron pilots the Gustav in order to go guns blazing. The overall goal is to rob a bank to make out with as much money as possible. Well, seeing as this is the Misadventures of Tron Bonne, the surfbots make many logistical errors and instead need to improvise by taking what they can from the town. You can send surfbots into houses, loot them for cash, destroy buildings with your weapons, anything villainous your mind can think of. The police obviously aren't fond of this idea and try to stop Tron. There's also one particular officer that serves as the boss of each episode, Denise Marmalade. But she's just one clumsy person. What could she possibly do to us? Oh geez, she just judo flipped the Gustav! Officer Marmalade is never too difficult to defeat, which makes sense. She's not a very adept person in the first place. While Tron loved to tease her initially, she does feel a little bad for the young officer that's just trying her best to uphold the law and not get fired. It's really interesting to see that Tron growing a faint bond with the nice people that happen to be her enemies is seemingly a trait she already had. The second mission type is the puzzle. These are definitely a breather kind of mission. No enemies to fight, no time limit, you can even restart the puzzle as many times as you want, and redo your last move if you made a mistake. Don't be complacent though, they're still the most complicated missions in the game. Your goal is to take the Gustav and load up cargo crates onto a boat. The thing is that you can only pick up 8 boxes per round, and depending on the material the box is made out of, it can be moved a different distance. Getting all 4 of the green boxes loaded onto the ship is pretty straightforward. However, a 5th optional red box is also sprinkled among the shipyards. Commandeering it will also increase the total reward from the mission. If you're really stuck, you can also ask the surfbot accompanying you for some hints. One thing I found very interesting is that the higher a surfbot's brain stat is, the more useful tips they will give you. A level 1 brains might not be able to help you out at all, but a level 4 surfbot will be much more detailed. From what I can tell, they'll get you started on what pieces you should move first, but not where to move them. So in the end, it's still on the player to figure out the rest for themselves. I really like these sections. Honestly, they're my favorites in the game. I cannot say the same about the next mission type, the RPG missions. The title is a bit misleading though. It's not like you're suddenly going to do turn-based battles with surfbots. Though now that I say that out loud, that is a valuable idea. Capcom, take notes! In this one, you'll get to dungeon crawl and explore cave systems underneath the island to find treasure, solve puzzles, and do some lighter combat. This time, Tron doesn't pilot the Gustav, but a smaller drone named the Finkel. Here you'll guide along the surfbots and use beacon bombs to get them to do whatever you need. I don't think it's bad, but definitely less engaging. On average, they're longer than the other mission types, and they feel like they drag on. At the very least, all the characters you meet in the caves are really fun, and have moments of wonderful humor. This is also where you get to see Tron's motherly side towards the surfbots. She may be a pirate, and she may torture some of them, but she's absolutely ready to give praise whenever they do well. If you didn't like Tron before playing this game, it's extremely doubtful you won't come around by the end of these missions. The last mission type is where you explore the Nakai ruins in search of Diana's Tear, the same mission that Teasel deployed for at the beginning of the game. This is the only mission you can do as many times as you want, which is encouraged, since you're probably going to get worn down pretty quickly if you don't go in prepared. It's sort of Metroid-like in the sense that you can find parts for new equipment, which can open up new paths in the dungeon, so it's impossible to complete it on your first run into the ruins. There's also no set reward like you get with the other missions. Whatever Zenny you find and pick up is what ends up contributing to the mission total. If you manage to find where Diana's tear is, you can sell it for the full million zenny you need to pay off Teasel's debt. So we should probably go do that now. So one way or another, you'll get the 1 million zenny and head down to Lex Loath's ship to pay off Teasel's debt. Now we can finally get the Bonne siblings reunited and...
Let's see, 10, 20, 30, looks a little short to me.
What are you talking about? There's a million zenny right there.
Yes, there is. But there's this little thing called interest, you see. If you borrow money, you have to pay interest on it. Let's see. With this much, I need another 2 million zenny.
What? Are you kidding?
Yeah, we probably should have known it couldn't be that easy. Now the debt is raised up to another 2 million zenny due to the interest accrued over time. Well, it sounds like we have to go on more missions. There are a couple more missions that just opened up that players can tackle if they want to. For starters, we have another variation on the puzzle levels from before. The twist this time is that the number of boxes the Gesellschaft can lift up changes depending on the level. To offset this, you can instead use the shipyard equipment to move boxes free of charge. Cranes will pick up and move them around, and the forklift will automatically take boxes back to the ship if you can clear a path for the surfbot to take. These missions are definitely way more difficult than the previous puzzles. For the third episode, I got stuck on the first puzzle for an hour. I eventually gave up and had to look up the solution. The best part though is that I felt like an idiot for not getting it sooner. If you want to solve these puzzles for yourself legitimately, all I will say is try everything. Even if you think you've exhausted all of your options, keep trying random things out. You never know what might give you the idea for sweeping the board. There's also a secret mission that you can access in this game too. If Tron decides to take a nap in her room, then her favorite surfbot will be in charge of the crew for a little bit. This is where they take a trip to the local casino and try to make some money. There are 2 games you can play, Bingo or High and Low. Both are pretty self-explanatory. I wish there was at least one more game type to play, but maybe they didn't want to overcomplicate things. It's a fun little diversion, but nothing all that special. In fact, it's pretty inefficient in terms of making money. Although I love all types of video game casinos, so at least it's there. And that's all there is. Yep. It's kind of weird that only 2 more missions got added after the halfway point, and one of them is a secret mission even. It's a shame that there are no more missions. None left available whatsoever. Fine. Another action-type mission also gets added to the world map at this time. Your objective is to wrangle animals to a truck so you can sell them later, and... I hate these missions! Episode 1, not all that bad to be honest. I don't mind it that much. Episode 2, it's still intolerable, but God is it annoying. Episode 3 though, forget about it. Oh my God. The horses are so fast, and I never understand what makes a surfbot decide to tame one and ride it back to the truck. And if you somehow get graced with success, then you need to defend them from the enemies that try to knock the surfbots off. The infinitely respawning, grouped up, sometimes invincible, sometimes fast as hell enemies that boot the surfbot off the horse faster than they can get on, and now that horse is halfway across the pasture! Episode 2 and 3 will also put a boss fight on you, and if you aren't prepared, he will destroy the truck and cause you to fail the mission at the last possible moment, meaning that all the time getting those horses to cooperate was for nothing! I strongly recommend that you equip the bomb bazooka for these missions and wipe the floor with his blood. If there's one positive thing I can say about the Sart Farm missions, well, then it'd be that you never have to do them. With there being a wide variety of playstyles, there's bound to be one kind of mission that you like. You can then focus on that. Just like with the last game, I did a playthrough as fast as I could to see how long it would take, and it only took me 2 hours to get to credits. It's a surprisingly short game when you only do the content that's necessary, and to be honest, I quite like that. I loved the puzzle sections, but if you don't, then you never have to do them. Maybe you genuinely love hurting animals. Or maybe you want to do only the first or second episode of each mission. Maybe the classic MegaMan Legends gameplay style is what you like the most. Well, you can play only the Nakai Ruins exploration over and over again if you really wanted. For the purposes of getting the broadest perspective on this video, I did every mission in the game. There's plenty of room for you to only do the missions you want. Well anyway, now that we have the cash to pay back the interest on Teasel's loan, let's get prepared and head into the finale of the game. Tron once again heads off to visit Loath, this time with the 2 million zenny in hand. Tell me if you saw this twist coming though. In the time it took for Tron to get the money for the second time around, the interest then accrued interest. Well, this time Loath orders Glide to throw Tron in jail, and instead forces her to work off the debt. In jail, we meet up with Teasel yet again, and he fills us in on what's been going down. The pirates and diggers that Loath kept imprisoned work to unearth a giant mechanical robot known as the Sleeping Colossus. It's supposedly extremely powerful and can even be controlled by whoever holds a special refractor. This then leads to the Bonnes doing what the Bonnes do best: figure out a way to steal the Sleeping Colossus for themselves. Well, in order to do that, they need to employ a jailbreak. Call in the Servbots. Well, the Servbots are beginning to panic. They have their orders, but no one is confident enough to actually step up to fulfill them. All 3 of their leaders are in jail. Oh, where is our brave hero in our time of need? Where is our bot in shining armor?
I'll do it! Wow! Good luck! Hooray!
Whoever Tron's favorite Servbot happens to be will then volunteer to pilot the Gustav and lead a team to rescue their masters. Way to go! So yes, for the next mission, you actually get to play as the favorite Servbot piloting the Gustav solo. I always get a kick when games have sections where you play as someone other than the main character for a short period of time, and the heads-up display changes to adapt for that. If you go into the pause menu, you can see how nervous they are. Don't fret, little buddy, you got this! And once again, the music playing during this part is awesome! Eventually, you'll rescue the Bonnes, and they'll make their way to the Sleeping Colossus, where Glide is waiting. Time for a rematch. Despite this moment being climactic, don't get too worried over it. Simply employ your tried and true strategies you've been developing for both games. And by that I mean strafe around in a circle and keep shooting. These bosses never learn. In the meantime, Loath was then taking his time to activate the Sleeping Colossus, while Glide uses the fight to stall for time. Eventually, enough time passes where the giant mechanical beast reactivates. The Bonne crew then go back to the Gesellschaft and concentrate all of their firepower onto Loath. But the ship gets damaged, Tron gets too hurt to continue fighting, and Teasel is thrown overboard. It's time for the favorite Servbot to once again step up and fight in the place of their beloved Miss Tron, and immediately deploys to fight on top of the Colossus. This is admittedly a nitpick on my end, but I find it incredibly weird that it's the Servbots that pilot the Gustav to fight the final battle. This game is the Misadventures of Tron Bonne after all, and she has way more beef with Loath than any of her Servbots. It really should be her fighting against the Colossus directly. I would have even accepted Teasel getting back into the cockpit. Give him a moment to repay Loath for all the trouble he caused. I don't think the narrative just does enough to support having a Servbot do it themselves. It's not something I have a huge problem with, but I would have done it a little differently if I was making this game. But in all fairness, the final fight is pretty decent. You have to start by weakening the power supply by removing various orange pylons over the body. This includes using beacon bombs to direct Servbots onto the head to remove the final pylons. It makes use of the Gustav's moveset rather well. But with that done, it's time for Phase 2 of the boss fight, which has the most health of any enemy in the Legends games. Look at this health bar! It extends way past the borders of the screen. Well, don't let it intimidate you. Just keep dodging, then shooting, and you're good to go. Before you know it, Loath will be thwarted. With both Loath and Glide begging for their lives in the middle of the ocean, Tron gets a mischievous idea up her sleeve. If she saves them, then their cooperation will help make up to a friend she caused a little too much trouble for. Cut to the police station, and Officer Marmalade, contemplating if her days on the force are numbered, then stumbles across a tied-up Loath and Glide. Marmalade's boss then assumes it was her that brought in the two, and now that their most wanted criminals have been subdued, they can finally be brought to justice. Things will continually wrap up from there. The Bonnes have a big celebration to praise the ones that put so much work into making their entire operation a success. The favorite Servbot, so ecstatic to serve Miss Tron, was so motivated that he cleaned out the entire storage room by himself. Which is good, because that's exactly where Tron put all of the spoils they got from their adventure. Wait a minute. If all the treasure was put in the storage room, and the surfbot threw away everything that was in the storage room, then... oh no.
What do you think you're doing? Everything we worked for, everything we got is gone! Poof! Up in a puff of smoke! Just you wait. I've got something really special waiting for you in the torture room. Eek!
And thus concludes the Misadventures of Tron Bonne. In case you couldn't tell, I really ended up enjoying my time with the Misadventures of Tron Bonne. It's the best kind of spin-off that a fan could ask for. It took the elements of what made the original game so much fun and really played around with something completely new. It doesn't evolve the series to greater heights, but it's a distinct and charming game that many MegaMan Legends fans would gladly say is their favorite in the series. In the end, there was one thing that I felt was lacking in Misadventures of Tron Bonne. I would say that the game is over too soon. And that's not me giving an underhanded compliment that I wish there was more game to play. I think the game is just a little too underdeveloped. As much as I didn't like the RPG gameplay style, I think it's weird that it didn't get another variation like the action or puzzle missions. The Nakai Ruins also felt really underwhelming. For being presented as this super huge dungeon, it's actually surprisingly small. You can get to the Reaverbot boss very quickly, and assuming you already have the Bonne Bazooka equipped and some healing items, it's not really all that threatening. I also think there should have been more interaction with Officer Marmalade, considering that Tron grows a soft spot for her by the end of the game. None of this is to mention how you don't have to do any management of the surfbots to complete the game. In fact, engaging with that system is almost more trouble than it's worth. But the concept of this game is just really clever. If it was able to get a sequel, or even a spiritual successor that could expand upon those ideas, it would be incredibly awesome to play. Well, that's another Legends game down, and another soon to come. Next time we will be following up the story to the original MegaMan Legends. Where will this great legacy take our blue boy next? Only the moon knows for sure.